Hello, welcome. I'm Stephen Depiangco, CEO of Max Power Gaming. I'm excited to bring together some experts to talk about what's been happening in the Roblox space with Roblox and brand integrations and recent announcements they've made regarding policy changes, including fees, regarding sort of integrations into existing Roblox games. So I'm just going to do a quick intro, pass it around, or do some intros for the folks here, and then jump right into the topic. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and we'll try to get to those at the end or if it makes sense along the way. So just real quick, I'm Steven, CEO of Max Power Gaming, put out a weekly newsletter about Roblox and brands and what's happening in the space, post often on LinkedIn. We also have today Alexander Lee from GamesBeat, who broke the story last week. And we have Jen Donahoe from Deconstructor of Fun, industry expert in gaming, to add to this, sort of conversation about this topic. So just to kick things off, Alex, if you could help sort of set the table and just walk us through here, what are the sort of major points of this announcement?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me on, Steve. It's a real pleasure to talk about this, and this is big news for the Roblox and the UGC establishment in general. So I think just important to be unpacking it in a little more detail. For some quick context, Roblox has been jockeying with other stakeholders on the platform for quite some time now, at least the last couple of years, as everyone tries to secure their piece of brand revenue that's coming in. And brands and advertisers are flowing into Roblox at the moment and UGC in general. And so it was already a topic that I was looking into and sort of keeping my finger on the pulse of. Last week, I caught wind that Roblox was meeting with a number of key stakeholders across its ecosystem to let them know that at some point in the undefined future, it was actually very unclear when I initially found out about this, Roblox would be charging a fee to anyone who included a brand or IP integration inside a pre-existing experience. And the idea of this was really just to, um, well, okay, they were very unclear about the details. The idea was that they were going to create some kind of portal or tool and require all creators who had brand integrations to self-identify as having those integrations inside their experiences. And then Roblox would charge some kind of scaling fee to creators for publishing those experiences based on the traffic and engagement inside the experience. And so the analogy that I made in the story is that it's essentially the equivalent of YouTube reaching out to top video creators and telling them that it would start charging them a fee by the view for any video that contained a sponsor logo or ad read or any other sort of brand activation. And obviously, this is not something that YouTube or any other creator platform has done. Um, so I I interviewed I caught wind of this through some people in the ecosystem and eventually of course reached out to Roblox to get their side of it, and I ended up interviewing Stephanie Latham, who is the vice president of global brand partnerships and advertising at Roblox. And her overarching message was that this was not a play for revenue. It was not a way for Roblox to actually secure a bigger piece of brand advertising revenue by doing this, but instead intended to increase the standardization of the space, make brands trust the brand safety of Roblox ads a little more, and thus create a flywheel effect that improves everyone's circumstances by just inviting more brand spend into the platform overall. So she explicitly said to me, "This is not about revenue," which I thought was interesting because that definitely contradicts how every other stakeholder I spoke to was perceiving this announcement. I'll just say that.
Sure, sure. Yeah, for sure. And I've talked to folks, over the past few days, and somebody told me, oh, when companies say it's not about revenue, it's about the revenue. And so, Jen, would love your take on this. What are you buying the narrative that Roblox pushing here that it's not about the revenue? What's your take?
Well, every good comms person is going to always find the right spin to get their goals and objectives across. And so I think we have to hold a lot of different things in our brain at the same time. One is maybe they aren't so focused on it being about revenue. It's always about revenue. They do have concerns that they are trying to address. Number one is we know that brand safety is a thing. Absolutely. I think the bigger picture right now is that in the world of advertising, we've got programmatic advertising, which is I'm just going to go buy some ads in a system, and that happens in a sense offline. And then you have creator-led content. And so on every platform, whether you're watching YouTube or Switch or in Roblox, there is a direct relationship between a brand and a creator. Right now, a brand, so if you think of it, American Express or BMW, whatever, they are going to a creator who's typically a 20 something, maybe even a 16 something, and saying, hey, can you put my BMW car inside of your game experience? And then these people have to figure out how to make that happen. There needs to be safety requirements, and sometimes there's even COPA, Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act, because the audience of Roblox is so young, the advertisers might be, in a sense, trying to get their products marketed to a younger person. There are brand and safety concerns. I will tell you, though, having worked at many of these brands, no one is more concerned about their brand safety than Walmart or BMW or any or Rice Krispies or any of these brands. So the real reason they're doing this is to have better metrics and better KPIs to show a brand that the ROI of their revenue is actually there so that more brands come to the platform. So if you really want to know the real reason, like it's to have a better like, adult orient like a not adult oriented like adult orient, but like it's like a grown-up ad system that they can like connect people together. However, in my humble opinion, they're solving the wrong problem.
Hmm.
The problem isn't that creators and brands can come together. Like, sure, do you want to make that easier? That's great. But no one has ever taxed or put a rev share on that business on any platform. The only one I can look at was back in 2023, Twitch banned these burn-in ads. And in less than 24 hours, they killed the entire thing because the creators all left and went to Kick. So are all the creators going to leave and go to, UEFN or Minecraft? No. But I will say, Alex, from what you said too, this is all preliminary. Let's give them a little bit of time. These are all like a lot of leaks. I think, people were probably, you did get to talk to the VP, which was fantastic. And I appreciate, I mean, a lot of my information is your reporting and obviously all the others. So sorry, longer answer, but I wanted to get some of those points in up front to help kind of frame how we're thinking about that this is like a creator, on YouTube or TikTok, creator brand integrations do not happen in platforms. And then programmatic absolutely does happen in platforms, and that is taxed, and that is a different system. So, two different systems. Roblox is the first time they're actually breaking or getting involved in that secondary system.
Right. And when you compare like the programmatic and these sort of like custom bespoke sort of integrations, it seems like in some ways Roblox is trying to make these custom bespoke become programmatic, right? That have, sort of like clear inventory, clear sort of measurement around it in order to be able to, as Alex was saying, sort of like scale the business, be able to get more brands in. And just to comment on the safety piece, I think when I think about these integrations now, they're clearly ads, right? So if you're a brand that is going into a game, that is an ad, but there's no sort of system in place to really disclose that that is an ad to like two players, or at least like not a standard uniform system or process in place. So I think that there's certainly safety issues regarding, as you were saying, sort of COPA and just sort of like advertising sort of standards. But then, yeah, as you're saying, also like I think the sort of standardization piece is an interesting piece in terms of right now, you have some developers that are working with brands and they'll put out, hey, we did this campaign with a brand and we had like 100 million impressions. And somebody will come out and say, we did another campaign, we had like 5 billion impressions or whatever the number is. And it's like, well, how are people measuring this? There's no standardization. It is kind of the Wild West. And so I appreciate, on one hand, like the effort to try to standardize this, to try to get things both compliant from a safety perspective, as well as like in a way that brands can understand and feel like, okay, cool. Here's what if I buy this, here's what I'm getting. Because right now, and I guess this is also true in YouTube, that it is still like not standardized and it can
Well,
not as
but
developed. Yeah.
kind of is.
Okay.
And to me, that is the role of the platform. The role of the platform and the 30% fee that we pay, that any game maker pays to the platform, is to provide metrics, KPIs, and useful information that allows you to engage in your business in the
Hmm.
best possible way. So on YouTube or TikTok, you can get a standardized, you have followers, you have impressions, you have engagement rates, you have comments, you have all these different systems that are now the bespoke way that brands and creators engage and come up with a CPM that they pay for their business. So Roblox, in my humble opinion, that goes into what the platforms deliver, and it is currently today not taxed, or there's not a rev share on that delivery of that type of system. To your earlier point about on YouTube, you do hashtag ad. So
Right.
yes, you are correct that what Roblox again should be doing as part of the platform, in my opinion, is to offer, what is it that a game maker has to do to signal that they are doing that. Now, you also have in mobile games, in many games, collaborations. Nicki Minaj was in Call of Duty, or John Cena and SpongeBob in Brawl Stars. Like these collaborations happen all of the time. Sometimes you have IAP, people are buying and selling certain things, and sometimes it's just a marketing campaign that happens to be a collaboration. I would say that a lot of this is what happens inside of the Roblox games. You've got, the Olympics showing up in someone's game. And so, when is it a collaboration or when is it like a brand integration? I think a lot of that just has to, in a sense, be developed, and the guidelines need to be developed by
Yeah.
Roblox to help facilitate that. And I'm sure we're going to get into who this helps and who this hurts a little bit later,
Yeah.
because there's going to be a pretty big impact on that.
Sure, for sure. And Alex, I want to pass it back to you. Jen was just talking about like, hey, sort of platform responsibilities, right? What is the platform sort of duty as it pertains to sort of like this ecosystem and the tools and systems that they're providing for stakeholders across, whether it's developers, whether it's brands, et cetera. So like if Roblox is taking a cut, what new value would they be providing? In return for them taking a cut, or even if they're not taking a cut, I guess what should they be providing in this situation?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So, I mean, I do want to point out just to quickly address what you guys were talking about before. Roblox rolled out new guidelines a couple of years ago that did explicitly require creators to flag creations as having brand integrations or ads or not. Now, I fully believe that there are many creators and studios out there that are not complying with those guidelines, and so maybe the idea is further compliance is necessary. But I did want to say that, technically Roblox does require all ads to have that disclosure, and that would be on like the launching page essentially for the or like the descriptive copy for the experience. To get to your question, Steve, I quite frankly don't see what value creators are actually getting out of this. um I think r- creators previously were able to already guarantee certain metrics to the brands that they worked with, especially creators in top integrations that had consistent traffic in and out. Like they already knew what was coming in and what was coming out, and they could offer that with great confidence to advertisers. And so, no, they don't. The ability to get new metrics or deeper metrics does not materially change their business. I also want to point out that they are not necessarily legally at risk for what they're already doing. This is entirely up to Roblox in terms of what they consider to be safe and not safe. And I think there are interesting considerations because Roblox is a platform that is primarily used by children, and children are not as good, or some people believe that children are not as good at knowing when they're being advertised to or not. But
Hmm.
the idea of brands paying to integrate into a form of entertainment or media without explicit disclosure is not new. We've seen product placement in TV and movies for decades, and you don't have to see a little hashtag ad above Pepsi when Brad Pitt is drinking it in World War Z or whatever. So Roblox is kind of preemptively adding these guardrails, but I don't see it's not like creators were getting slapped by the FTC already and suddenly need to be defended. So Roblox, I mean, to your point, Jen, I feel like they're solving problems that didn't necessarily exist. And what they're doing is improving the ecosystem for themselves most of all, not necessarily for creators. It's also their right to do that because it's their platform. But creators are upset because they don't feel like they're getting any real new value out of this.
Yeah, and you were talking about how, sort of like from a measurement standpoint, it seems like, hey, developers already could say, hey, here's what you're going to get in advance. There's no sort of like meaningful, sort of like special metrics that Roblox is really able to provide that is, like going to materially impact sort of developers and these sales. Jen, what's your take in terms of like, do you believe that there I guess do you agree with Alex's take that like, their Roblox isn't necessarily providing a tons of value, whether it's related to sort of like these, tools related to advertising or measurement. Any sense of that?
Well, again, you do have to kind of keep both sides in your head at the same time.
Yeah.
So I do think that adding these kinds of systems will allow brands to potentially want to come to the platform more because they have a standardized way to interact with these creators who, in many sense don't have never worked with a brand before, don't know how to apply all the brand guidelines, all the different back and forth. They're going to get metrics that might allow them to come back more. They're going to potentially be able to buy more rewarded ads, although not for certain categories per your reporting, Alex, which makes sense because rewarded ads in mobile are the number one way that advertisers engage in mobile gaming. By the way, 80% of all of the playership on Roblox is on mobile. And so they're trying to add this, more business to rewarded ads. And if you can do that by combining, in a sense, a system that goes to brands and offers a bigger package, what Roblox is thinking is how do I make this platform more appealing to brands so that we can drive revenue? Because we know that Roblox struggles a bit on revenue generation because they're trying to monetize a younger audience. The other thing that they're struggling with a little bit is that, the US market is the number one market, and they are showing metrics that have them stable, if not growing in the US, which is great for them. But I would probably say that most, I forgot the exact number, don't quote me, but it's something like 75% of the audience is going to be non-US. So maybe it's 20, 30% in the US. And then if you think about what that means to an advertiser, advertisers, I'm sorry to say, don't really care mostly about outside of the US inventory. So you're going to have to figure out a way to, and what isn't done today is how do I understand, or maybe it is done, but it's done more on the back end from the developers, is where is the traffic coming from? And then how do I account for a share of a revenue share against where that traffic is coming from? So that's just another layer that is going to have to be decided and dug into. And then the one other thing I would say too is when you've got these brand interactions, are you doing a rev share on the people who engage in that interaction? Is it the overall experience that's being I'm just going to use the word tax. I'm not necessarily meaning it in a negative way, but a rev share is difficult to say all the time. So these are factors and unanswered questions and questions that I hear people are asking of like, oh no, am I going to have to pay for the entire, a tax on my entire like visitorship, even though only a percentage of them are engaging in this world? And what is actually tax? So there's a lot of questions that come about in all of this, which leads to answering your question is the burden is a bit more on a creator in this case than it would be. This is being done primarily in again, in my opinion, to benefit the world of the brands and revenue generation, while also, having safety involved in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to just quickly add to that because I think you make a really good point about how this adds another layer of measurement, and this is actually something that will potentially hurt creators because creators now have more uncertainty when it comes to how much they or the brand or whoever pays the fee will have to pay. By the way, I've been saying fee, Jen. I also feel like tax is the term that comes to mind. I'm trying to be very PC about it. Um, so the issue is it raises the question of who's going to pay that, right? Well, will creators and studios have to essentially predict what that fee will be and then price that into their deals so that brands pay it more? Will studios just have to take the hit and sort of start paying that on the back end and then maybe figure something out to cover that? it's very unclear to me, but I think anything that creates uncertainty about how much something is going to cost will deter advertisers from spending money. They want to have concrete numbers.
Especially if it's variable. And I think your reporting says we don't know what the rev share percentage is, or is it a CPM? Is it, because of the measurement system, is it going to be, X amount of CPM and against what volume? I think any variable uncertainty versus a fixed level of uncertainty makes a program, it could balloon overnight. Like what if you just happen to you're disincentivized to bringing in a lot of players because then if it's a percentage of that, now you're paying like a lot of money, and a poor little brand creator, this is how many smaller creators were able to survive on the platform because they're not necessarily, yes, the top 20 games are crushing it. The money you can make on Roblox is freaking amazing. I will say when you do all the math, though, you've got platform fees, Apple, Google, the console folks you have to pay. Then there's a Roblox platform fee, which, they should get because they're running the platform. When you look at the amount of money that actually lands in a developer's pocket from in-app purchases, I'll just call it IAP for now, that's only between 20 and 25%. I know that DevX has changed a little bit. So you're getting, in a sense, in your pocket net, much less than you would get if you were doing a mobile game or a console game or a Steam game. And Steam actually just reported rev share that is actually higher. It's not quite 30% because many games operate below a $50 million threshold. So the rev share that you get as a small developer is already extremely low. And so many people were going to these brand deals because it's 100% in their pocket. Now I wonder if we're going to have creators rethinking their role, and also is this going to eliminate a lot of the smaller developers who want to take the time to actually incentivize them to have them think they can make money? So is this what happens in mobile many times? Is this a consolidation of the big?
Yeah, and I want to get to that in a second. I'll sort of pass it to you, Alex, to hear your take on that. But in my experience working across various different integrations, totally agree that there's smaller developers out there that definitely rely on these integrations. In many cases, there's different Roblox genres of games, such as like obbies, for example, that don't necessarily monetize well. So they can get an audience, but they don't necessarily drive a lot of those transactions and, get it sort of generating revenue on its own. And so, but they have this scale, right? They have millions of people coming to the games. And so brand integrations are really sort of like very viable, fruitful path for them to be able to support their businesses, to grow their businesses. And so, yeah, I guess Alex, to Jen's point, do you feel like, sort of like whether it's a fee or a tax on these sort of, integration deals ends up hurting smaller developers and sort of concentrating power among those bigger developers that already have, successful games with tons of scale?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think it does. I mean, it goes into exactly what Jen was saying before, and also what I was saying about the lack of clarity around fees. Simply put, the bigger developers, the ones who have investors or the ones who have some kind of corporate backing, will be able to absorb the hit. They'll be able to take this hit in the short run and adapt and figure. And I'm not discounting that maybe ultimately this settles in something that is better for everyone, but there will be hard times for creators in the short term, and the smaller guys are the ones who just can't take that. Really quickly, I want to answer a question that we have in the chat from Stone
Sure.
Newman because I think this is interesting and something that I would have liked to clarify in my article if I had a little more room. Stone asked, in your discussion with Stephanie, did you find out will this eventually cross over into branded experiences? For instance, a studio builds an experience to promote their film. They had zero hopes/plans to monetize the game, but they hire a studio to build the experience. Are we headed down a slippery slope where this tax would be applied to those scenarios as well? Tax was in quotes, and it was Stone's word. I actually explicitly asked about this, and they told me in very clear terms that this policy is specifically intended to target pre-existing popular experiences that are integrating brands or IP into them, which makes sense given what I was saying about the metrics that those experiences are able to guarantee. Um, they did not explicitly say that there wouldn't, they basically said there is a potential path or a way that those branded experiences can be made that will trigger this label essentially, and then require the fee to be paid. But that's not the intent of the policy, and I think it will be structured in a way very explicitly to make like a third party IP holder who launches a game inside Roblox exempt from having to pay the additional fee.
Yeah,
Just
that's a big deal. It would have to be, right? Because you've got the NFL, you've got
right.
movie properties, Sonic, Barbie are some of the biggest games that have been on the platform for years. In my mind, those have to be, seen completely separate. And what we're trying to do here is really address collaborations or in-game advertising for, in a sense, unbranded games that are including. Now, what is weird is, like I said before, like these types of collaborations with movies and others are what happen inside of all of these other products every single day. So you've got like a licensed integration with Jurassic World versus, Walmart World popping up. Are those the same things or different?
Mm.
Because, many players don't view that as an ad. They view that as, oh, like, oh, cool, that can now get like Jurassic Park dinosaurs in my game. So I think there's going to need to be a little bit of, classification around. And typically in advertising, you've got categories, you've got entertainment, food, beverage, automotive. I'm sure they'll make that. And I think, Alex, I wanted to ask you what felt like the right thing. So in the comms world, it felt like Roblox was having discussions with all of the folks before they were ready, in a sense, to announce this. It sounds like you got a scoop. So I think we are all freaking out a little bit before they made the announcement, unlike what, the Unity runtime fee that happened. I don't know if any of you are kind of familiar, but a couple of years ago, Unity came out and said, hey, we want to tax, in a sense, all the installs. The developers went crazy and everyone was like, why didn't you just talk to us about this first? They had been having some discussions, but they decided to announce this. So I hope Roblox is learning from this, the Unity RTF fiasco, and it sounds like they are. They sounds like they're still trying to work it. So I want to give a little bit of a benefit of the doubt to them. Is that what you heard, Alex?
So mixed bag. Overall, yes, but there's some nuance here. So I this is inside baseball for whoever's tuning into this live stream. Um, in my article, I wrote that Roblox explicitly said that they were not there was no official, percentage cut that they had determined, or they didn't even commit to anything in terms of how this will be structured at all. Um, and that's what they told me. So I agree. I mean, I believe that. However, I was told in clear terms that they did say some different specific percentage cuts and structures and stuff to different stakeholders in the conversations that I had heard about, or other conversations that were happening, some of which I heard about after I published my story. And what I can say is that the numbers that they shared were not satisfying to people. And so I think that to some extent, there was an initial idea that they were shaping the policy around. Part of that idea also was that the policy would roll out later this year and not next year. And to Roblox's credit, I think they've experienced this pushback, both after the article was published and in their private meetings with stakeholders. And are adjusting their policy accordingly. So they are totally playing ball, and I think they take the feedback really seriously. But I think there was a perfect world that they were trying to achieve, not necessarily with anyone's input at the very beginning of this process.
As is usually the case.
Yeah, yeah, I don't fault them for that at all.
Um, Thanks for sharing that context and yeah, certainly this is yeah, it was a sort of big news, which is why we needed to like I wanted to, convene the both of you to be able to help break this down. We just have a few minutes left here. If people have questions, feel free to drop them in. We might have time for one or two questions. My last question to both you, Alex and Jen, is yeah, who are the winners and losers in this situation? Alex, I'll go to you first.
So I think the winner, I mean, the winner is Roblox, honestly, because for better or worse, Roblox I think Roblox it is going to implement some form of this policy. It's not like Twitch where they tried to mess with creators' brand deals. There was this big pushback. Creators, threatened to go to another platform, as you mentioned, Jen, and they walked it back. Because the truth is, Roblox kind of has they have like 99% of the leverage here. They are the platform. This is their platform. The audience is not going somewhere else. Like Roblox users are staying on Roblox no matter what happens, and if a creator leaves, they'll just go to another experience. And also, it's not like video or audio or another form of media where you can just very easily take your file and upload it to another service. Like Roblox games are coded for Roblox. It would be very expensive and time consuming to, for example, recode a Roblox game for UEFN on Fortnite.
Correct.
So creators can and maybe should make a lot of noise about this because it's something that's hurting their bottom line, but we're not going to see a Twitch situation or a Unity situation where it gets walked back. I think some form of this policy will be implemented and Roblox will make money as a result. So Roblox is the winner. I think the loser, to your point earlier, Jen, is the smaller creators and studios, creators that were initially just kind of dipping into brand deals as a way to make money without necessarily having to pay an additional 70% of their revenue to Roblox and other platform operators. Now no longer have that option. I don't think that the good news is a lot of smaller studios are not built around brand integrations as a revenue stream, so maybe they will survive, but they will lose money as a result, and Roblox will gain money.
Yeah, I think the other challenge, like you said, are genres on Roblox that are not IAP heavy games. So in a sense, in mobile, we call it hyper casual, the ad monetization driven games that are high engagement but low on IAP. Those types of games, when they've typically used brand integrations in the past, that's a revenue stream. And so now that might be a little bit challenging for them. With a rose-colored glasses, the brands might actually benefit from this because the brands might get the metrics and data that they're wanting to get so that they can find better ways to invest, spend their money, and reach this audience that is almost impossible to find anywhere. I mean, the reason why brands keep coming is there's no better way to get a Gen Alpha audience eyeballs in front of your product. And so I think there could be a brand benefit if everything shakes out in the right way. That is, there's a lot of things that have to happen for that output, but I wanted to take the glass half full side.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I guess taking a look at just sort of like the ecosystem for the ecosystem to mature, I appreciate the spirit that that Roblox is approaching this. I think like yes, the execution, has certainly caused a lot of uproar and developers, especially smaller developers, have a lot to lose here if they are very dependent upon these brand deals. But I'm hoping that this, yeah, sparks sort of open dialogue that Roblox is receptive to this feedback and will make the right moves that move the industry forward, while still also sort of supporting the creators that are making this possible. We're gonna wrap up there. Alex, Jen, anything you want to plug before we wrap up where people can sort of follow more?
Alan?
Yeah, I mean, just first of all, thank you for having me. And please, I encourage everyone to go to GamesBeat and subscribe to GamesBeat Max. There's a free tier. You don't have to pay anything. Just signing up to get our content piped right into your inbox. So if you want to learn more about this or anything else related to the UGC ecosystem, that's where you should go. So that's what I want to plug. And thank you again.
Yeah, for sure. Jen?
Thank you for having me as well. I'm a huge fan of GamesBeat and go subscribe and do all the events. So I do a podcast called This Week in Games at Deconstructor.fun. So Deconstructor of Fun. I can't even say my own podcast name. That's crazy. I'm trying to say deconstructor.com, offun.com is our website. Go there or subscribe, YouTube, all the different things. And then I also do marketing consulting called Jade Inferno is my own company. And then I also head up strategy for a consumer insights company called Beta Hat. So if anyone is looking for player insights, custom research, we do that as well. So those are it's like severance. Jen has to make money doing consulting so that Jen can be on a podcast with, you guys and talk about things.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And yeah, for me, check out maxpowergaming.co to subscribe to the newsletter and follow us all on LinkedIn. And thank you, Alex and Jen, for joining, and all of you for watching. All right,
The
take care.
stone for the question, my buddy.